Alright, so last week we took this guitar apart and we repaired the pots. In the back they had some real scratchy sounds going on when you had it plugged in and you turned the knobs. There would be a real scratchy sound coming out of the amp. And also we soldered the jack. We stripped the wires and soldered the jack. Soldered the wires back to the jack, I guess I should say. So all we're going to do this time, we're going to clean this guitar up. So let's get started. I've already got the strings loose, so I'm just going to go ahead and take them off. And that bridge will just pop right off, and it makes it kind of easier to pull the strings out. You may not have this style of bridge on your guitar. Maybe you've got like a Fender style bridge or whatever you may have. But either way, we're just going to take the strings out. And now this bridge will come off as well. So we're going to clean all of that. I'll probably even go ahead and take these out. All these screws that hold all these bridges in. Take a soft bristle toothbrush and I'm going to clean around all of that, because we've got some buildup going on there. I'll clean these screws as best I can. And I'm even going to go ahead and take these pickup guards off and the pick guard as well. I'm going to be real careful with these, real gentle, because these are old. These pickup guards are pretty old and they look like they're a little cracked. So I'm just going to really be cautious of not putting any extra stress on these when I'm taking them off, or putting them back on really is the more vital time. Okay, and now once you get your pickups, these 4 screws, once you get your pickup guards loose, you're going to have to go ahead and disconnect the pickup from the pickup guard itself. And so we'll do that. We'll just work these screws down simultaneously with one another until, there we go. And they do have springs in them, so be mindful of the springs. And what I like to do, just to keep things organized, I mean, you got the longer screws in the taller pickup guard that goes in the back. I mean, that's pretty easy to remember, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep all of these together, just because that makes it easier to keep track of everything. And be careful moving these pickups around, because there's going to be just a short wire, and if you damage that wire, you may just end up having to replace your pickup. But you can see there's a lot of dust in here, so we're going to get all that cleaned up. Chris said he bought this guitar from a guy, and this is, it's just kind of been sitting around. He's an acoustic guitar player. He's a singer-songwriter kind of guy. So this guitar has just been kind of sitting around at his house, and he wants to get it cleaned up and get it in action. So we're going to get it there for him. So on this style of pickup guard, you're just going to have 2 screws that hold this in place. You got this one here, and then one holding the bracket over on this side, which I can't turn it over because these pickups will fall out here. I'll just hold them for you so you can see that screw there holding that bracket. This screw just attaches the bracket to the pick guard, and we may detach that and try to, that pickup guard's, or that bracket is pretty bent, so we might see if we can straighten that out. Alright, you can see where these pickups were sitting. There's some leftover crud on there, but it's coming off pretty easy. So we're going to take this soft bristle toothbrush. This isn't something that you want to do all the time to the finish of your guitar. But if you have an older guitar that's been sitting around and you need to give it like a once over, a good cleaning, soft bristle toothbrush, and just very lightly just where that crap's on there. You don't want to leave any little streaks or anything on the paint. And I know there's probably somebody saying, oh, that crap's getting down into the pickup. Well, look, these pickups are filthy right now. We got to clean these out anyway. So if you want, really carefully set this off to the side. Just don't get it, try not to damage the paint sitting it anywhere. And then I'm going to take some canned air and blow all this stuff, but I'm going to blow it back this way so it's not going back towards underneath these knobs that we've already cleaned up. Keep it in that direction as best I can. So that looks a lot better on that one. Need to get this side a little bit better over here. Let's check this guy out. Let's see if we can't scrub this a little bit, maybe. Get some of this junk off of here. Alright, so I scrubbed around on that. Let's flip it around here. And just remembering to keep it, if you have the guitar you're doing this to in the same condition that I have this one, where you have the pickup guards removed completely and your pickups are free floating, just remember not to turn this thing upside down, because those are going to fall out and be hanging by that wire, and if they fall out hard, then you can damage that wire. So I'm going to come up here to this nut, and it's probably kind of hard for you to see it, but that is pretty dirty in there. So we're going to scrub that really good, and probably even take off this cover to clean in there. We'll have to take off that cover anyway to set the action. So it's probably not a bad idea to just go ahead and remove that. But let's clean this first, and that way we don't get crap down inside of there. Now that will actually come out. So that's awesome. So now we can just sit here and work on this thing. Now you can see the difference between, what would that be for the camera? The right half and the left half. The right half looks a little cleaner now, and the left half is kinda, I hope I'm saying that right for the camera. To me, that's what it is. But it's still got some schmutz down in here on this right side. So I'll probably go ahead and get a little bit of alcohol and scrub that. So let me go grab that. Alright, so I'm back with some rubbing alcohol. And we're going to scrub this. You don't want to like soak this in this alcohol, because you can really dry out that plastic and kind of decrease the life of the plastic. So we're just going to kind of dip the toothbrush in here. Get some alcohol on that brush. Get rid of the excess. And go back to scrubbing. Now that did not take long. Look at the difference, man. That's way better. That was about 10 seconds. So let's hit the other side. Alright, same thing on the other side. About 10 seconds of scrubbing, and man, that is looking good as new. I'm going to go ahead and just hit this whole thing like that, because it's a little dingy looking. So let's see what we can get. That nut looks good as new. That looks like it's a brand new thing straight out of the factory. So that's good to go. I'm just going to set that off to the side now. So because that alcohol works so good on that nut, I'm going to go ahead and scrub on these saddles a little bit where there's a little bit of just some caked on debris. There's a little bit of rust, and the alcohol won't do anything for that. But it'll help clean it a little better. And if you see, I'm kind of keeping this thing under my hand. That way I'm not getting alcohol splatter back on the paint on the guitar. Probably it would be wise to just do this in a separate area. But it's like 6 in the morning right now, and my girlfriend's asleep in the other room. So we're doing it right here. And that actually does look better. Yeah, that looks good. We're looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit this part. Everything's looking nice. There we go. So those parts are clean. We're going to set them off over here to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and clean these with some alcohol too. And show you on this back side here. Get these screws out. There's a bunch of dirt and grime and stuff caked up underneath the underside of that. So we want to get all of that out of there, because this is basically a shield on the outside to protect things, to protect your pickup from things getting down inside of there. So we want to get all that cleaned out and make sure we do it really good. Now I'm going to be real careful with these pickup guards because they are a little old, like I said earlier. And on this one you can see that it even has, maybe you can see on the camera, I'm not going to flex it or anything to make it obvious, but it does have a little crack right here. There we go, we can see it. I guess I'll flex it a little bit just so you can see it, but I want to be very careful with that. And again, you don't want to clean the plastics on your guitar with alcohol all the time, because if you do this too much, you are going to fade the color. But like I said, if you have an old guitar that you just picked up, or one that's been laying around for a really long time, and it's just filthy dirty or something, or it's got all this kind of junk caked in here like that, hitting it one time is not going to ruin it. Wouldn't do it with probably some $10,000 guitar, but you know, we'll survive here. This isn't going to hurt anything. We're not going to fade out any color or anything like that just by hitting it one time. We're just going to make it real clean. And I know Chris, he's going to take good care of it. He bought this guitar from a guy who, and I don't think I've explained in this video who Chris Matthews is. He's a buddy of mine who plays music around Tulsa. We played some shows together. And he bought this guitar from a guy, and he said it's just been sitting around in the case. And whoever he bought it from probably didn't take the best care of it. Now I say that because I know Chris and his guitars. I've played his guitars at shows, and his guitars are not this dirty. So I am making the assumption that this guitar is this dirty because of the previous owner. Chris said he hasn't done much with it. Hasn't been able to do much with it because of the problems that we actually fixed in the last video. So we're going to get this thing playing right, feeling right, looking good. And then we're going going to give it back to him. And he's going to hopefully fall in love with it. Alright, so I did some serious scrubbing on that, and that thing looks great now. So we're going to hit the other one, and we'll go from there. After we get done cleaning these parts, we're just going to set these screws in the alcohol and let that alcohol kind of eat away anything that's on them. Same thing with the springs. You don't have to worry about drying that metal out with alcohol, obviously. Let's make sure. I'm going to make sure that these screws are the same. The screws that hold the pickups to the pickup guards. And they are. They're the same length. Same thread pattern. They're the same. What you got to remember is that the screws that hold the pickup guard to the body of the guitar are different sizes. So this is the short one. This is the long one. Or if you remember, the short ones go on the neck position pickup, and the long ones go in the lead position pickup. So we'll just set all of these in a pile over here, and we'll once we're done using this alcohol to clean, which is going to be here in just a minute, we're going to go ahead and throw those in the alcohol and let them just soak. But first, we got another dirty pickup guard to clean. So let's hit that. And also, this is the one on one side, it's cracked. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see it right there, it's cracked. And then on this side, on both sides really, it's kind of bowed out a little bit. So we're going to be real gentle with this one and make sure that we don't do any more damage than is already done. So where it was cracked, it split apart while we were cleaning it. And I was wondering if that might happen because this plastic's kind of old anyway. But that's okay. We're going to take just a little tiny amount of super glue and just put 2 or 3 little beads in there. And that'll hold that back together. And honestly, super glue is so tough, man, that if this thing ever breaks again, it'll either break like right next to it or in a completely different spot. It won't ever break at that point again. That super glue is actually usually stronger than the plastic. And there is another crack right here that's not all the way through. So just to go ahead and strengthen that, we'll probably put a couple of dabs on the inside of this pickup guard. And that'll help prevent that from splitting any worse. Yeah, you can see it there. Alright, so I just like this gel. It's way easier to control it. And yeah. So we're going to use some of this. And the way I'm going to do this is just very gently kind of pull that apart. You don't want to pry on it or anything because it's already broken, so it's not going to be the strongest thing in the world. Let's get some glue ready. And I mean let's actually do it from the inside. Just the tiniest little dab of this stuff will work. Such a small amount that you probably won't even be able to see it. I don't know if you can or not. Hey, you see a little bit of it on there. Just a couple of little bitty beads, and then press that together. You don't have to squeeze it with all of your might or anything like that, but just hold it together right where it should be for about 60 seconds, and then you're good to go. Alright, 60 seconds later, we're in place. Now I'm going to put a couple little dabs on the inside of that other crack that isn't all the way through, but we want to stop it where it is. So I'm going to put one little dab down here in this corner where the crack stops, just to make sure it doesn't spread any farther. And then I'll put a couple of little dabs up higher and just kind of spread them over that crack. And that should help us out a lot. Make sure that it doesn't get any worse. And we're looking pretty good. So we'll set that off to the side, let it dry, probably hang it. We'll hang it on this deoxit that we used in the last video, and that way it won't be touching anything. Alright, so I'm going to take all my screws here. Got all my screws from my two bridges. I've got the springs and the long screws that attach the pickups to the pickup guards, the pickup mounts, and then I've got the screws that attach those pickup guards / mounts to the body of the guitar. And I'm just gonna throw all of these into this alcohol right here and just kind of toss them in the sauce, as they say, and let that alcohol do its thing. And I'm going to put a little bit more alcohol in here just so everything in here is submerged. Now it's really important that you don't use alcohol on anything with like a paint finish. Metal that has chrome on it, that's fine, but you don't want to use alcohol on anything like on the painted wood of the guitar or anything like that. But all these screws to just help break down all the crap that's on there, this is going to do a great job of that. So we'll set that to the side, and I'm also going to take off this cover right here, and I'm going to take these screws and put them in there as well, because they're pretty rough looking too. Kind of give them a little love before you put them in the alcohol too. That helps break just the loose stuff off of them. And then when you do put them in there, there's not as much crap diluting the alcohol, so it can do its job a little better. So looks good. We'll leave it sitting there for a little bit. And oh yeah, I forgot about these ones. Let's put these screws in there too. And there we go. So I'll give this thing a little bit more of a scrubbing. The back side isn't really as important, but I just kind of want to see the debris that's on this thing, the stuff that's on here, if it'll come off with alcohol before I put it on this other side. I really don't want to use alcohol on this. This isn't actually painted, it's just black plastic. But you'll kind of fade that finish really quick on that with alcohol, that colored stuff like that. Same thing with this dude right here, this little cover for your truss rod. So really we're having pretty good luck just wiping that off. I might get down in these holes with this toothbrush and then use some canned air to blow it out real quick, so that alcohol is not just sitting on there, because there's going to be a little bit left in this toothbrush. Alright, looks pretty clean to me. Still a little piece of something in there. See, I use one of these guitar strings, see if I can get it out. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to pull all of these out of here. They've been in here for about 10-15 minutes. That's long enough. You don't have to leave them in there for 2 years or anything. I mean, really, if stuff's going to come off of them, it's going to come off. If it's not, then it's not. We're not going to spend 10 years trying to soak these screws in alcohol, because honestly, most of what's on these screws is not really dirt. It's actually rust. And alcohol is not going to do anything for rust. Alright, so we're going to leave these out, let them kind of dry off a little bit, maybe lightly hit them with the canned air so we don't blow any of them off the desk. Alright. And we're going to let these sit here and dry. And I'm going to let my pickup guard that I've got super glue on, I'll let that kind of hang out and dry up. And then we will come back this evening, because right now it's about 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. So we'll come back after I get off work. We'll clean this thing up a little bit more and reattach all these parts. Alright, so a couple more things before I put this back together. One, I'm going to take this screw out and this nut off of the back of this screw. And also I'll take this bracket out with it, and I'm going to throw these little 3 pieces of hardware, the screw, the nut, and the bracket, into my alcohol and let that kind of soak for a few minutes while I also clean up this little area around here with the toothbrush. And I'll probably also even take off these tuning pegs. I'm not going to soak these in alcohol because those have got little gears inside of them that have grease in them, so I'm not going to soak those. I'll just dip the toothbrush in alcohol and kind of scrub those off. So we'll do that. All you have to do to get these tuning pegs off is just take some pliers. I just got these little small ones here, and turn this nut counterclockwise, and then you'll be able to just spin that off of there. And there will probably also be a screw on the back that you'll have to get out. Now I gotta watch these pickups. Yep, and then there's that screw right there on the very back side of that tuning peg. And so probably the best thing to do would probably be take this screw out first and then take the nut off of the front. And then there's that. And so those have got a little bit of crud built up in there. But all you do, you pop that screw out, and then you got, when it's actually on the guitar, you'll have this mounted up underneath, and then that'll be through your guitar. This part will actually be in the wood of the guitar, and then that washer will sit on top of that wood, and then that nut will reach down inside of that pin and screw on. So we'll just pull all those off. And the screw itself and the nut and washer, those can be put in alcohol. But like I said earlier, if something is kind of dirty, you don't just want to throw it in alcohol. You kind of want to scrub it off before you put it in the alcohol. And that way you're not diluting your alcohol. Alright, so I went ahead and scrubbed everything down real good with the toothbrush after I got it out of the alcohol, and even before I put it into the alcohol, all this hardware for the headstock of this guitar. I also took these pickups and I took my toothbrush and just kind of gently went around the outside of that. So anyway, let's slap this thing back together. And my pickup housing, whatever you want to call it, looks pretty good. It's got that crack in there that we sealed up with the super glue, and it's looking good. And then that other crack that didn't quite go all the way through, and it looks pretty solid too. So I think what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put the cracked side facing toward the bridge, so that way nothing can hit it. It's covered up underneath the strings. Nothing can get under here and hit it or anything like that. So we'll just go ahead and put it on that way. So something to keep in mind here. I got fortunate and put these on right anyway. But these pickup housings are they're tapered. So like this back side is taller than this front side. Now on the back one it's not so drastic, but on the front one you can really tell that that's got a pretty hard taper to it. And the back one, I think it has a taper, but it might actually be the right size on both ways. No, it does taper down. So you would want to keep that in mind as well when you're putting these back on, that you kind of want these to, if your strings are going to come up as they come farther away from the fretboard, they're going to be higher over here, basically in relation to the body of the guitar. They're going to be higher over here than they are over here. So you're going to want your pickups to kind of come at a rise, if that makes sense, the further back they go. Alright, so I ran into a problem trying to run this back screw in back here. I would say when I tightened it, but it never even got tight that I could tighten it. It was just free spinning, so that wood stripped out. So again, this is a trick I probably wouldn't use on a $10,000 guitar, but what you can do is just take the end of a toothpick, and I've already got the piece that I need because it's a very small hole, and just put that little piece of a toothpick down in that hole, and now we should be able to run a screw down in there. What we'll do, we'll go ahead and get the other three lined up first, and we'll run that one down in there last. Alright, so I've got those three screws started. They're not tight yet, but let's see now if this will actually go in there. And I'm not going to tighten it down real hard or anything, but it's got just enough to where it'll hold that screw in there and it won't come loose. And I'll keep these other three, I'll tighten them up a little bit to keep the strength to actually hold that pickup housing in place. So that's good to go now. Now on these four screws, you can see on the two back ones here, I ran those all the way in, and on these two I left them sticking up. We'll go over why that is in the next video. We'll talk about that. Now on your tuners here, these are going to be directional. You'll have three for each side, and it just depends on how your guitar is set up. This guitar is set up with the screw hole underneath where the post comes through the guitar. So you can see that these three will go on, these 3 will go on this side, and then these other 3 will go on the other side. Now whenever I'm putting tuning pegs on, I also like to check that the pegs, when you turn them, are all kind of uniform in their, I guess, rigidity, for lack of a better word. Like this one does not free spin. It has a little bit of a tension to it. This one free spins. This one's like right in between. So really, I mean, this one's probably, I don't know, you probably want, this is probably what you want. I don't know how to describe the feeling of like what's right. It just really kind of depends on your preference. So I'm just gonna give that a little snug up. Now that bracket is a little bent that goes on the pick guard, but I'm not going to try to straighten that out just because I don't want to take a chance of breaking it. So we're just going to leave that how it is and reattach it. Alright, and then all you got left is to throw your bridges on back here and slap some strings on this thing. And I am not going to put strings on it in this video, but I will in the next video. So this has been part 2 of 3. Part 1 was when we fixed some issues that we were having with some scratchy pots behind these knobs, and also basically a bad connection to the jack that we had to resolder. Okay, that was the first video. The second video, what we did just now was just a deep clean of the guitar and kind of, you know, inspecting the parts as we go along, make sure that things are still working. And then, you know, in the next video, we're going to actually set up this guitar. So I may make another video that I'll just post some other time that I won't include in this series of 3 videos of like how to string your guitar. If you're watching this video, that's probably super, you know, day 1. But there are going to be undoubtedly some people out there who have a guitar that needs strings and they don't know how to put strings on it. So we'll go over that. But part 3 in this little deal that I'm doing is going to be how to actually set up the guitar. So it's going to have strings on it next time you see it. And we're going to talk about setting the action, the string height, the intonation, and the pickup height. So stick around for that. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you've enjoyed what's on this channel. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't like it. That helps me know what to put out for the future. And also leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. If it was helpful, if it was dumb, if it was way too long. I know it's probably way too long of a video at this point, but that's okay. I'm a very detailed person, and I like going into details. So, anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Play on.